Have you ever been tip baited? If so, do you know the steps to take to get your money back? If you drive for Uber Eats long enough, you're unfortunately eventually going to fall victim to a dirty little thing called tip baiting. This is without a doubt the most infuriating thing about Uber Eats, but make sure to stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to tell you exactly how to get your hard-earned money back. What's going on, everybody? I'm Zach Drives Fast for the RideShare Guy, and today we're going to talk about scammy customers, unethical business practices, and driver wage theft. Let's get into it. Before we go any further, we need to define tip baiting. Tip baiting, a twisted game where the customer reduces or completely removes the tip after the job is complete. I'd like to give you a couple of scenarios where a driver might get tip baited. For our first example, we're going to call this driver Anthony and say he drives in Las Vegas. Anthony works a W-2 job, but after he gets off work each night, he drives for an additional 4 hours to support his family. After waiting around for a while, Anthony's elated to see a $10.50 order come across his phone. This order is only going 1.5 miles, and it's picking up at a fancy sushi place. Anthony checks in with the restaurant staff only to be told that his order is going to take an additional 15 minutes. He decides, since he's already driven to the restaurant, he may as well wait for the order. Not to mention, the customer ordered a lot of food, so there's a potential for a hidden tip. Being a driver that cares about his customer's experience, Anthony decides to text them to let him know it's going to be a bit of a wait. After a bit of time passes, Anthony gets the order, drives to the customer, and gets it delivered. Being an experienced driver, Anthony knows it's going to take at least an hour for that tip to come through, so he keeps doing orders. After a few hours, Anthony realizes he hasn't seen that tip notification come through. Anthony opened the app only to realize that he had gotten tip baited. This would be an example of a conniving customer that likely never intended to adequately compensate him to begin with. We'll talk more about people like this later in the video. Before we get too far into the video, I do want to say, I don't believe every time that a driver gets tip baited, it's without warrant. We've all seen that one driver out there and thought, you're the reason that we all look bad. We're going to call that driver Mitch. No offense to anybody named Mitch. Our Mitch isn't the most ethical person in the world and probably shouldn't be a driver. As Mitch rolls up to the customer's house, he has his new sound system on full display, rattling every house in the cul-de-sac with the bass line from Gangsta Rap Made Me Do It. He doesn't give a shit that it's 11:30 p.m. To make matters worse, there's already a straw in a suspiciously light-feeling drink that the customer had to go out and walk to their curb to retrieve in the rain. Mitch could have walked the 15 feet to leave the order under the customer's covered porch, but instead he just opened his car door and left it right there on the curb. Mitch didn't even bother getting out of his car. Now, is this an extreme example? Sure, but you can find videos of drivers doing far worse all over the internet. After some time passes, Mitch also opens his Uber app expecting to see the tip come through, only to realize that he too was tip baited. Drivers like Mitch don't just deserve to get tip baited, they deserve to be deactivated. Now, do I think that a driver should be deactivated solely on the word of one customer? No, I don't. But it wouldn't be hard to believe a customer when that driver already has a rating of 77% and 300 deliveries. Clearly, he has a track record of doing something wrong. Believe me when I tell you, there are plenty of drivers out there who are doing this type of work that probably shouldn't be. And I realize very few drivers are like Mitch, but they do exist. Rather than giving customers the ability to tip bait drivers who do their job fast and efficiently, perhaps Uber should take a look at the drivers that are making us all look bad and deal with them. If the customer's experience was truly bad enough to warrant reducing or completely removing the tip, I'd argue that that customer probably deserves a full refund. I don't have a problem with the fact that bad drivers get tip baited. It's the fact that good drivers get tip baited without legitimate reason all the time. Let me know in the comment section how frequently you hear from a customer after the order is delivered that there's an issue with the order. Our job is to take something from point A to point B, not to make sure it's cooked to perfection or to make sure that the restaurant followed their instructions. Scenarios like these are out of our control entirely. Now, I always check the order to make sure I'm not missing a drink, but I quit trying to verify the order about 2.5 years ago. What happens when you try to verify the order? A restaurant employee is just going to run down the receipt and read off the items that the customer ordered. Just because it's on the receipt doesn't mean it's in the sealed bag. Should we be required to open a sealed bag to ensure that everything was included? No, that's a guaranteed way to get both tip baited and deactivated. Of course, we're not supposed to open the bags. They're sealed for a reason. Stick with me, I promise I'm going somewhere with this. Ensuring that everything that they ordered is actually in the bag is out of our control and not part of our job. We shouldn't be tip baited when the restaurant forgets to put something in there. Now, I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but there's been a few times that I've gotten stopped on the freeway due to an accident and traffic just wasn't moving. All I could do was text the customer and hope that they were going to be reasonable. To drive home my point, I want to share one more example, and this one also happened to me. A couple years back, I was delivering a Starbucks order on a windy and rainy day. That part will be relevant in a moment. The moment that I swiped start delivery and saw the address, I knew I was going to have to get in touch with this customer because I knew that this was a secure building, but yet they didn't provide an access code. I had to use the call box to find her name and tried a couple of times with no success. I also tried calling her a couple of times as well as sending a few messages in the app. Despite me trying to reach this customer several times using 3 different methods, I was unsuccessful at reaching her. In my 3 years of doing delivery work, this is the one and only time I've ever gotten to keep somebody's order. And in case you were wondering, turns out I'm not a big fan of pumpkin spice lattes and goat cheese. A few moments ago, I said that this was a windy and a rainy day. And when I say windy, I mean windy. It was raining sideways. As a result, there wasn't a single dry place where I could have left the bag. Being fairly new to the Uber platform at the time, I called support to ensure I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. And it was support that told me I got to keep the order. I found it infuriating that support told me that this customer would be able to leave a 1-star rating and there was nothing that they could do about it. Fortunately, this didn't end up being the case. But she did tip bait me. My suspicion is the customer was working and accidentally ordered to her home address rather than her place of employment. It's not my fault she didn't look at the app close enough to figure out where she was actually ordering to. Quick side note, if there's ever a case where you're going to keep the customer's order, make sure to take a lot of pictures. I'm talking house numbers, apartment numbers, building numbers, anything that can prove you were where you were supposed to be should something go sideways. But to my point, these are all examples of things that are out of the driver's control and therefore the customer shouldn't be able to tip bait. If the customer's experience was truly bad enough to warrant reducing or removing the tip after the job was done, that customer should be required to deal with support who's specially trained to ask very specific questions to find out if it was actually the driver's fault. If it was the restaurant's fault, don't tip bait the driver. If the customer screwed up, don't tip bait the driver. If it was anything other than the driver being scummy, don't tip bait the driver. I'm of the mindset that a customer should be able to alter a tip, but they should only be able to increase it. If tip baiting is actually warranted, then Uber should probably take a long, hard look at that driver and find out if they belong on the platform to begin with. If a customer tried to make a claim about me with a 100% satisfaction rating and a comma in my deliveries, that would be easy to dismiss. It's easy to see that I don't have a track record of pissing off customers or messing with their order. To wrap up this part of the video, if the customer's experience was truly that bad, then they should probably just get a full refund instead of tip baiting the driver. The fact that Uber allows drivers to be tip baited is bullshit. To put it simply, this is a contract between us and our customers. We're agreeing to take an order from point A to point B for a predetermined price. In any other line of work, if you pay that contractor anything less than the agreed upon price after the work is done, the next time you see that person will probably be in court. Uber is a multi-billion-dollar company. A multi-billion-dollar company that is a willing participant in driver wage theft. I have a 100% satisfaction rate on Uber, but yet I've been tip baited multiple times and have never once done something shitty to deserve it. Of course, my previous ideas are nothing more than a wish list for a perfect app, and the likelihood of Uber ever stopping this practice is slim to none. But there is a way to get your money back if you get tip baited. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're gonna have to be a Karen, and you're gonna have to decide if the amount of money that you're out is worth the hassle of dealing with support. Now, some of you are going to disagree with me, but I don't care if I only get tip baited for $1. I'm still calling support. It's the principle behind the matter. Another human being allowed me to do work for them and then turned around and screwed me over after the job was complete. Every time I get tip baited, I get my money back. This is how you can get your money back as well. Pick up the phone and call Uber driver support. If you don't have the number, here you go. Pause the video and save it in your phone. Uber's automated system will ask you why you're calling, and you'll respond, missing payment. After completing a quick identity verification, you'll be transferred to an agent who will not be able to help you. That's right, the person that answers the phone cannot help you. They just don't have the authorization or power to. Before you get transferred to the person that can actually help you, you're going to need to explain to that agent that you got tip baited and you expect to be paid what was rightfully owed to you. Once support understands this problem, they're likely going to read you a script about how tips are optional and blah da blah da blah da blah. You can completely ignore that. Just tune it out. This support rep is nothing more than a side quest before the boss fight. Do not waste your breath arguing with this person. Again, they cannot help you. Once they're done reading their obnoxious script about how they have no problem with a customer screwing you over after the job is complete, ask to speak to a manager in the driver payments department. This is the person that can help you. You'll likely wait on hold for several minutes and very well may have to explain the scenario all over again. If this person gives you any kind of pushback, Tell the supervisor that this was a contract between you and your customer violated that contract by changing the agreed upon price after the work was complete. For good measure, throw in something like, I expect to be paid the agreed upon price for the work that I already completed. If this person seemingly isn't on your side, this is the person that you will need to respectfully argue with. I've never personally had a manager give me any kind of pushback, but in the event that you do have that experience, remember the phrase, the customer violated the contract. At this point, the customer that tip baited you has already been reimbursed the tip amount. So when you get an adjustment, it is not going to come through as a tip. It's going to just come through as an adjustment. Sometimes these can take several hours to end up in your Uber wallet. So if you don't see it right away, don't panic or get mad. If every driver did this every time they got tip baited, Uber would eventually get tired of sending out adjustments and reevaluate their tipping policy. If you drive for Uber Eats long enough, unfortunately, this will happen to you. And I hope that you join me in being part of the solution. What are your thoughts? Have you ever been tip baited on Uber? Let us know in the comment section below. If you liked this video, you may also enjoy this video where I break down some common games played by DoorDash and Uber Eats. I'm Zach Drives Fast for the RideShare Guy. Take care.